"How dare you touch my son?" Olivia's shrill voice echoed through my kitchen, startling me more than the sudden sting on my cheek. "My name is Elizabeth. I am 52 years old." I froze, shock rooting me to the floor. As guests at my son Daniel's small dinner party gasped, no one moved. The room felt suspended in tension. Every eye on the scene I had never imagined. "This story is for you, and your one subscribe means the world to me. It keeps me creating stories for women like you, so please hit subscribe and like. It truly helps me continue sharing these journeys. What would you do in my place?" Stay. The reversal lands fast, and sometimes dignity waits quietly. Just out of sight, even as my hand throbbed, I noticed the small hidden camera perched on the top shelf, angled perfectly to capture the confrontation. Months of careful planning had brought me here, and the $12,500 gift card tucked in my locked drawer was part of a puzzle Olivia thought she'd control. My 3 a.m. wake-up call yesterday reminded me that patience was power, and timing everything mattered. Olivia stormed out, slamming the door behind her, leaving shocked faces and whispered commentary in her wake. I touched my cheek, inhaled slowly, and allowed the calm to settle around me. No one knew what I already knew. Power could be invisible, and humiliation only lasted as long as I let it. I couldn't let that moment define me. I had to plan my next move. I lost my husband 5 years ago, and after decades as a nurse, I retired to spend more time with my son, Daniel. He was 33 now, steady and thoughtful, the kind of man who valued honesty above all. Our bond had always been quiet but unshakable, built on small gestures, Sunday breakfasts, long evening walks, and shared laughter over trivial household mishaps. I thought our little family world was secure, that life's storms had passed us by. Then came Olivia. She was 28, ambitious and lively, but her warmth often veered into impatience and entitlement. From the start, she seemed to expect the world to bend to her will, and her disregard for boundaries tested my patience. I had met many people in my lifetime, yet her confidence disguised a streak of manipulation that I would learn to recognize only gradually. Gifts she accepted without gratitude, unsolicited advice she offered to Daniel with a pointed smile, and casual dismissals of my contributions became daily irritations, each leaving a subtle mark. My approach to conflict had always been measured, I had learned. Over decades of nursing patients and managing a household, that dignity mattered more than immediate retaliation. Calm words, steady composure, and quietly enforced boundaries were my tools. I believed these principles would guide me through even the most trying moments, yet the combination of grief, trust, and Olivia's growing assertiveness would soon challenge that belief in ways I could never have anticipated. Financial and emotional stakes added pressure. Daniel's $50,000 trust fund, accumulated over years from family inheritance, was something Olivia coveted, though she would never admit it aloud. Family reputation mattered as much as money. A misstep or humiliation could ripple through our social circles, leaving scars that lasted far longer than any slap. Months earlier, sensing that I might need to protect my home and assets, I had quietly installed small hidden cameras around the house, devices that seemed innocuous but recorded critical angles of our living spaces. It was a precaution I never imagined I would use so soon. I watched Daniel laughing with friends, oblivious to the tension brewing around him, and tried to remind myself that appearances could be deceiving. Calm family life still clung to the surface, but a storm was forming quietly beneath, and I felt its weight in the tightening of my chest. I never imagined it would come to a public slap, but the writing was on the wall. Numbers have a way of clarifying danger. Daniel's $50,000 trust fund, meant to secure his future, had become a silent point of contention. Olivia's interest in it was subtle at first. A passing comment here, a casual suggestion there, but I knew her intentions well enough to calculate the stakes. Hidden in my locked drawer was a $12,500 gift card I had given Daniel last Christmas. a gesture of generosity that suddenly felt like a bargaining chip in her mind. Every month, Olivia also contributed $200 toward household expenses, a small sum that belied the tension it represented. Even minor financial imbalances could be weaponized. And I kept a careful record of every transaction. Family homeownership rested on maintaining clear boundaries. Any slip could compromise not only property, but reputation. I had spent decades teaching Daniel about responsibility and trust, and I would not allow those lessons to unravel because of entitlement masked as ambition. I calculated the timeline. Olivia was planning a quiet financial takeover within 3 weeks, attempting to influence Daniel into signing documents or redirecting funds without confrontation. The clock was ticking, and I realized that preparation, precision, and timing were my only allies. Every receipt, every ledger note, and every small transaction mattered. Yet while Olivia's ambitions were visible, my power remained invisible. I had quietly positioned proof, aligned authority figures, and ensured documentation was watertight. The contrast between her bold moves and my unseen preparation gave me a strange comfort, a reminder that control could be subtle. Yet decisive, I had to quantify everything. Numbers don't lie, and neither would I. It was 6 p.m. The golden light of early evening spilling across Daniel's kitchen. The small family gathering was meant to be casual. A few friends, a homemade lasagna, and laughter echoing against the walls. I had just handed Daniel a plate when Olivia's sharp voice cut through the conversation. "How dare you touch my son?" Before I could react, her hand struck my cheek. Gasps erupted from the few friends present. Daniel froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. Eyes wide in shock, the room was a frozen tableau, with the smell of garlic and tomato lingering in the air. Mingling strangely with the tension, I pressed a hand to my cheek, feeling both the sting and the immediate humiliation, aware that this slap would be whispered about long after the dinner ended. Unseen by anyone else, the hidden camera perched above the refrigerator captured every second. Its lens reflected a silent witness to the injustice, recording Olivia's fury and my measured restraint. I had positioned it months prior for emergencies I never imagined would arrive so soon. Yet now it was the only proof that would validate my composure against her lies. Olivia, in a flurry of indignation, began telling anyone who would listen that I had overstepped, framing herself as the victim to outsiders who didn't know the history. Her subtle half-truths would have spread quickly, leaving a tarnished version of events in their wake. The tension between what the world saw and what I knew created a strange calm within me, a quiet awareness that humiliation could be temporary, but proof was permanent. Friends murmured, shifting uncomfortably. Unsure where to look or how to intervene, I smiled softly, letting the moment pass. Though my mind raced, every expression, every gesture, every whispered comment was being catalogued. Recorded and remembered. I had the footage. But what could I do with it? The morning after the slap, I resolved that my boundaries needed to be unshakable. Small gestures I had once offered freely, organizing Daniel's laundry, running errands for Olivia, preparing extra meals, would now require conscious permission. I refused to be manipulated, politely declining requests that felt controlling or excessive. The shift was subtle. To anyone observing, it appeared I was simply taking time for myself. But in reality, every choice was deliberate. 3 days later, we met for a family brunch at a nearby cafe. The $200 bill covered our table, but it was Olivia's comments that struck hardest. "I don't know why she always tries to control everything," she whispered loud enough for the waiter to overhear. "Even the simplest decisions she can't let go." Her words carried a practiced arrogance, designed to unsettle me in public, yet I met her gaze calmly. Acknowledging her attempt without giving her the satisfaction of reaction, I quietly noted the incident in my small leather-bound journal. Date, time, statements, and witnesses. Every word, every gesture, and every underhanded remark became part of a growing record. This methodical attention felt empowering. A contrast to the helplessness I had once experienced during her initial aggression. Even as Olivia thrived on visible displays of superiority, my control remained invisible, accumulating steadily, quietly, like interest in a savings account. By mid-afternoon, I could see her frustration mounting. Each polite refusal and composed response chipped away at the sense of entitlement she had assumed as her right. My calmness became a mirror reflecting her own impatience and impulsiveness, and I realized that these small acts of control were shaping the dynamic more than any confrontation could. I left the cafe feeling lighter, aware that each measured boundary was a step toward reclaiming authority. While the gestures seemed minor to outsiders, they were strategic moves in a larger plan. A preparation for a reckoning Olivia could not foresee. I knew small actions now would lead to a big reckoning later. Olivia's temperament intensified as the week progressed. She moved from verbal assaults to more calculated actions, testing the limits of my patience and the boundaries I had firmly set. On Monday at 8 a.m., I noticed a $34.50 Starbucks charge on Daniel's debit card he swore he hadn't made. A small sum, but significant in context. Olivia had convinced him to let her treat everyone, framing it as generosity while subtly asserting control. I documented the transaction immediately, noting the timestamp, location, and the exact card used by Tuesday afternoon. The tension escalated in a different way. During a casual dinner with a few family friends at 2 p.m., Olivia casually inserted half-truths about my supposed interference in Daniel's finances. "Elizabeth can't help herself. She always thinks she knows better," she whispered to anyone nearby. Weaving a web of doubt, her lies were subtle, designed to influence perception without confrontation, and I could see how easily they could manipulate even well-meaning friends. Yet through it all, Daniel remained caught in the middle. He hesitated to confront her, torn between trust in his wife and the lifelong bond with his mother. His confusion was palpable, slight frowns, hesitant pauses, and questions that went unanswered. I kept my composure, offering only measured reassurance while cataloging each incident. My journal grew heavier with meticulous notes, times, dates, monetary values, overheard statements, and any witness who could later corroborate the events. Thursday brought another layer of audacity. Olivia took a small jewelry gift Daniel had intended for me, a pearl bracelet I had admired months prior. She claimed it was misplaced and later found, presenting it to a neighbor as a generous act on her part. I smiled internally, recording the details. The exact hours and the interactions, each incident, no matter how minor, added weight to the growing narrative of her entitlement and deceit. Even as Olivia strutted through these maneuvers with reckless confidence, I felt a strange calm. Her behavior, bold and visible, contrasted sharply with my quiet preparation. Every stolen dollar, every lie whispered over brunch or coffee, every small theft or misrepresentation became part of a dossier of evidence, stored safely and systematically. The more she escalated, the more I could rely on her arrogance as a guide to the vulnerabilities she left exposed. By the end of the week, her boldness had alienated friends, sowed doubt in Daniel's mind, and left her increasingly frustrated when I remained unshaken. While she saw chaos and assumed power, I saw clarity, timing, and inevitability. Each reckless move tightened the threads that would later ensnare her in public truth. Her arrogance would be her undoing, and I kept the proof close. By the second week of Olivia's escalating behavior, I realized that handling the situation alone would not be enough. I began quietly assembling a circle of trusted allies, individuals whose knowledge, authority, and moral clarity could validate the evidence I had gathered and guide my next steps. My first step was contacting our family banker, Mr. Reynolds, a longtime advisor. He reviewed the $34.50 Starbucks charge, cross-referencing it with card statements, timestamps, and location data. His confirmation of the unauthorized transaction gave me tangible proof. and his calm, professional validation strengthened my confidence. Next, I reached out to Olivia's HR colleague. Vanessa, someone who had witnessed Olivia's subtle manipulation of workplace communications. Vanessa discreetly confirmed incidents where Olivia had spread misleading information to coworkers, exaggerating her own responsibilities while subtly diminishing others. Her validation was careful but precise, establishing a pattern of deceit that extended beyond our household and into professional settings. These details were crucial. They framed Olivia's behavior as consistent, deliberate, and observable, rather than a one-off outburst. Finally, I consulted my family lawyer, Ms. Harmon, to review all compiled evidence, hidden camera footage, transaction logs, gift receipts, and written notes of conversations. She explained which materials were admissible in court or relevant in family disputes, offering a clear roadmap for leveraging the documentation strategically. Her guidance transformed my meticulous record-keeping from a private reassurance into actionable legal proof. Throughout this process, the moral support of my allies was as valuable as their professional expertise, Mr. Reynolds reminded me that financial control was not a personal battle, but a legal safeguard. Vanessa's confirmation helped me see that Olivia's lies were systemic, not subjective, Ms. Harmon's steady reassurance underscored the strength of measured patience and preparation. Together, they reinforced my calm, reminding me that authority and knowledge could balance the visible chaos Olivia created. I realized, more clearly than ever, that I was no longer isolated in this struggle. The network of expertise, confirmation, and moral clarity around me created both a shield and a path forward. Their presence allowed me to maintain composure, knowing that when the moment came to confront the truth publicly, I had undeniable support behind me. I wasn't alone. Wisdom and authority were on my side over the next several days. I focused on assembling every piece of evidence that would make Olivia's actions indisputable. The hidden camera footage from the kitchen captured the slap, her words, and every attempt to manipulate those around her. Each clip was carefully time-stamped, saved on a secure external drive, and backed up to ensure nothing could be lost. The visual proof was my anchor, a clear record of the confrontation that no argument could undermine. Bank statements followed next. I meticulously recorded every transaction Olivia had initiated without permission, including the $34.50 Starbucks charge, 2 minor online purchases charged to Daniel's card, and a $200 dinner she claimed Daniel had approved. Each entry was cross-referenced with receipts and notes in my leather-bound journal, creating a chain of accountability that reinforced the legitimacy of my claims. Gift receipts became another layer of proof. The $2,500 gift card I had given Daniel, once used or misappropriated by Olivia, was carefully documented. The pearl bracelet she attempted to reframe as her own generosity was photographed, dated and noted in my growing dossier. These tangible items, once trivial, now formed a concrete timeline of her entitlement and deceit. In addition, I collected incriminating texts and emails where Olivia attempted to manipulate Daniel or spread half-truths about my actions. Each message was printed with a visible timestamp, and digital copies were encrypted for safekeeping. I labeled every piece, noting witnesses, context, and relevance, knowing the exact chronology would be critical during any legal or public confrontation. All evidence was organized into a single secure folder I labeled August 12th, Olivia Evidence. The folder became a symbol of preparation and control, a stark contrast to the chaos Olivia tried to create around her. Each item, from camera footage to minor receipts, reinforced the narrative I had quietly documented for weeks, ensuring that no lie could escape scrutiny. Everything was documented, every lie accounted for. I remember the morning Ms. Harmon, my family lawyer, sat across from me in her office, sunlight streaming through the blinds. She methodically reviewed every piece of evidence I had collected: hidden camera footage, bank statements, gift receipts, and time-stamped texts as she examined each file. Her expression shifted from professional neutrality to quiet approval. "Elizabeth," she said, "the evidence is solid. If this goes to family court, you have a very strong case." Hearing those words gave me a wave of confidence I hadn't felt in weeks, transforming anxiety into purpose. Later that afternoon, I met with Mr. Reynolds, our family banker. He confirmed the unauthorized $34.50 Starbucks charge, along with the minor online transactions that had been quietly drained from Daniel's accounts. He provided a written statement validating the discrepancies and noting the exact times and dates. It was another layer of confirmation, a tangible acknowledgement from someone outside the family that my concerns were legitimate and grounded in fact. Even the smallest victories mattered that evening. I received a discreet email from Olivia's HR department. She had been issued a formal warning regarding the workplace misinformation she had circulated, time-stamped at 4:15 p.m. It was quiet, private, and procedural, yet it carried a weight of validation. The warning confirmed that her manipulations were being recognized and addressed by authorities she had assumed she could evade. Each piece of confirmation strengthened my resolve. For the first time since the slap, I felt the balance beginning to shift where I had once wavered. Unsure how Daniel or others might respond, certainty started to replace doubt. My preparation, patience, and careful documentation were paying off in ways I could now see clearly. Finally, the scales were starting to tip in my favor. The morning of the hearing, the courthouse was already buzzing. It was 10 a.m., and the room was packed with extended family, a few friends who had witnessed prior incidents, and the quiet hum of staff preparing documents. I felt a measured calm as I walked in, each step deliberate, knowing that every eye in the room, from Daniel to distant cousins, would soon witness the truth. The contrast between the hush of anticipation and the storm that had begun in our home weeks ago was almost tangible. Olivia sat across from me, her posture tight, lips pressed into a thin line. Confidence had always been her armor. But today there was a subtle tremor. She tried to meet my gaze, perhaps hoping to intimidate me in the same way she had at the kitchen dinner and the brunch. Yet my composure remained unshaken. I placed my folder on the table. The label, August 12th, Olivia Evidence, visible to the court clerk. Inside, everything had been catalogued. Hidden camera footage, transaction records, gift receipts, and time-stamped texts. The judge called the session to order, a steady presence that immediately commanded attention. I began presenting the evidence systematically. First, I played the hidden camera footage from the kitchen that captured the slap. Each frame time-stamped precisely at 6:02 p.m. The courtroom fell silent as the video showed Olivia's hand striking my cheek, her words echoing in sharp clarity, "How dare you touch my son?" Gasps rippled through the audience. Even Olivia's cheeks flushed as she realized the indisputable documentation was public. Next, I laid out the financial discrepancies. The $34.50 Starbucks charge, minor online purchases, and the $200 brunch contribution were verified by Mr. Reynolds, our family banker, whose written statement was accepted into the record. Receipts, card statements, and time-stamped documentation were presented side by side, leaving no room for her manipulation to hide. I emphasized the $2,500 gift card I had given Daniel, noting the date and the context in which it had been misrepresented. Each proof item was meticulous, precise, and verifiable, reinforcing the credibility of every claim. The judge nodded thoughtfully, requesting clarifications when needed, but never doubting the validity of the documentation. When I presented texts in which Olivia had attempted to manipulate Daniel or spread misinformation to family friends, her composure cracked. She stammered through an explanation, attempting to spin the narrative. But the evidence spoke louder than her words. Time-stamped messages, corroborated by witnesses and HR documentation, left her flustered and shrinking in the public gaze. Daniel's reaction was the most rewarding. Sitting beside the bench, he went pale at the footage, then visibly relaxed as the pattern of her deceit became undeniable. His whispered, "Mom, I didn't realize," conveyed years of confusion, hurt, and relief all at once. For the first time, he saw the full truth in front of relatives who had already been hearing small, biased fragments. The courtroom, once an arena of tension, became a space of clarity and revelation. Even Olivia's attempts to interject were silenced when Ms. Harmon, my lawyer, cross-referenced each claim with authorities who had already validated the evidence. HR, the banker, and prior witness statements. Her flustered arguments could not outweigh the meticulous preparation and the corroborated timeline I had built. The gift card, the hidden camera footage, the bank statements, all time-stamped and cataloged, formed a web that left her no escape. Family members shifted uncomfortably, some murmuring in shock, others exchanging glances that confirmed their own suspicions. The courtroom was filled not only with the people physically present, but also with the weight of long-held truths finally revealed. Olivia's reputation, previously polished in public perception, began to crumble under the undeniable proof of her behavior. Her entitlement, confidence, and manipulative efforts were on display for everyone to see. I remained composed, my voice steady and calm, presenting each item with clarity and dignity. Every subtle smirk she had once worn at dinners or brunches was now replaced with embarrassment. The energy shifted palpably. What had once been her arena of dominance was now a stage for justice. When the final text and receipt were reviewed, the judge spoke. "Ms. Olivia, the evidence presented is comprehensive, credible, and validated by multiple authorities. The court finds the claims substantiated." Relief washed over me, tempered by the quiet satisfaction of witnessing justice unfold publicly. Daniel's hand found mine beneath the table, a silent acknowledgement of restored trust and dignity. As the session concluded, Olivia's attempts at composure faltered completely. She left the courtroom with flushed cheeks, mumbling apologies that no one accepted fully. While I remained seated, composed, and dignified, friends and family came forward to express relief and quiet admiration, acknowledging that the truth had prevailed not through aggression, but through preparation, patience, and steadfast composure. In that courtroom, truth finally spoke louder than lies. Much as I thought the courtroom momentum was firmly in my favor, Olivia's voice rose, shaky but defiant. "Your Honor, I contest the validity of this footage. It could have been tampered with, edited, or manipulated." A hush fell over the room, and even Daniel's brow furrowed, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The judge paused, pen hovering over his notes. Clearly considering the objection, I could feel the tension tighten for a moment, the room collectively holding its breath. Ms. Harmon, calm and precise, immediately intervened, explaining the chain of custody for the camera footage, the timestamps, and the secure storage procedures I had followed meticulously. She reassured the court that the evidence was authentic, unaltered, and fully verifiable, leaving no room for doubt. Olivia's attempt, though brief, revealed the desperation that had been building for weeks. Her claim was loud and dramatic, but hollow in substance. I maintained my composure, meeting her gaze without flinching, letting the contrast between her anxiety and my calm confidence speak louder than any words. The pause proved enlightening, even small. Feigned disruptions could not undermine the truth. Her feeble attempt to cast doubt only emphasized the strength of the evidence I had prepared. Even her feeble attempts couldn't shake what was undeniable. After the courtroom session, Olivia avoided the public eye for days. Finally, she requested a private meeting in my living room. Her voice was soft, lacking the confidence that had once defined her presence. "Elizabeth," she began, almost hesitantly, I'm sorry for everything. I shouldn't have acted that way." I listened, calm and steady, acknowledging her words without offering excessive warmth. My dignity was intact, and I refused to let her apology erase the lessons learned or the careful boundary setting that had led to this moment. Daniel, on the other hand, expressed his gratitude openly, sitting beside me at our kitchen table the next morning. He grasped my hands and said, "Mom, I can't tell you how much this means. You protected me, our home, and even Olivia from herself. I respect you more than ever." His words carried relief, love, and a recognition that patience, moral clarity, and careful planning had been more powerful than confrontation. Financial stability was fully restored. The $50,000 trust fund remained secure. The $12,500 gift card issue was resolved transparently, and household finances were rebalanced with clear boundaries. Family reputation, once threatened by Olivia's manipulation and deceit, was protected by the undeniable evidence presented in court. Friends and extended relatives who had witnessed small fragments of the conflict now understood the full context, reinforcing the fairness and justice of the outcome. As I reflected on the past weeks, I recognized the power of patience and preparation. Every journal entry, time-stamped receipt, and hidden camera angle had mattered. My composure had not only maintained personal dignity, but had also allowed the truth to surface in a manner that was undeniable. The balance of moral clarity, methodical evidence, and unwavering calm proved that measured action could triumph over impulsive aggression and entitlement. The house felt lighter, quieter, and infused with a sense of restored order. The storm that had threatened to disrupt our family had passed, leaving clarity and calm in its wake. I knew, however, that I was not the same woman who had been slapped in Daniel's kitchen at 6 p.m. Weeks ago, the experience had tested my resolve, sharpened my patience, and reaffirmed the value of dignity under pressure. Life had returned to balance, but I was forever changed. Looking back, the events with Olivia revealed a truth I had long known but rarely tested so publicly. Patience, preparation, and moral courage always pay off. Reacting impulsively may provide temporary satisfaction, but measured action, grounded in dignity and foresight, creates outcomes that are lasting and just. Every step I took, from installing hidden cameras to documenting transactions, from consulting allies to preserving composure, was an investment in fairness and clarity. For anyone facing similar challenges, my advice is clear. Document carefully. Record dates, times, and details of interactions. Preserve receipts, texts, and any evidence that might seem minor in the moment. Maintain your dignity at all times, even when provoked. Because composure communicates authority and earns respect. Seek validation from trustworthy authorities, lawyers, bankers, HR colleagues, whose impartial perspective reinforces your case and strengthens your confidence. There is a profound karmic balance in allowing actions to unfold naturally, without vengeance or rash confrontation. Olivia's attempts to dominate, manipulate, and misrepresent only magnified the impact of the evidence I had quietly gathered. When truth is paired with patience and careful planning, it has a way of surfacing in the most decisive and undeniable form. Empowerment does not always roar. It often works in quiet, meticulous ways. By trusting process over impulse and principle over anger, I was able to turn humiliation into dignity, chaos into order, and manipulation into transparency. The sense of justice achieved was not only legal, but deeply personal. A restoration of respect, integrity, and familial trust. Sometimes the quietest moves create the loudest impact. This story isn't just mine. It belongs to anyone who has faced disrespect, manipulation, or injustice in their family. I want to hear from you. Share in the comments. Have you ever had to stand firm against someone who tried to undermine your dignity? Your experiences matter, and by sharing them, we create a space where wisdom, patience, and moral courage are celebrated. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing and liking the channel. Every click helps me continue creating dignity-first narratives for women who value integrity, justice, and emotional strength. Your support allows more stories like this to reach those who need them, offering encouragement, guidance, and a reminder that calm resolve and careful planning can triumph over chaos and entitlement. Together, we witness the power of standing firm, documenting truth and maintaining composure even in the face of humiliation. Each story reinforces the principle that justice, when paired with patience and preparation, is not only possible but inevitable. By engaging, commenting, sharing, and subscribing, you help build a community that values truth, empowerment, and the quiet but decisive victories that define our lives. Your story deserves to be seen, and together we witness truth prevailing.